Okay, so continuing here in 7.1 with the unit circle, we're on example 4, and it says find the terminal point in the unit circle determined by negative 5 pi over 6. So that means I go in a negative direction, which means I'm going down this way, and this would be negative pi or negative 6 pi over 6, so negative 5 pi over 6 would end somewhere over here. So with that in mind, I need to know my reference angle. Remember, once again, cosine is x, y is sine. So the reference angle is pi over 6, and that happens to be my ring finger. So according to that, square root of the right, that's 3 fingers to the right, so it's root 3 over 2. Sine is square root to the left, which is 1 finger, which is root 1, or just 1/2. So in this quadrant, all students take. The only thing positive in this quadrant is tangent, which means both of these need to be negative. So it would be negative root 3 over 2 and negative 1/2. So reference numbers and reference angles. Look at the fraction, see what quad. So anything pi over 6 is going to give you pi over 6, honestly. Let's make this simple. Reference angles, when you're doing reference angles, period. If you didn't know this already, whenever you're supposed to find the reference angles, it appears to be whatever pi over 6. If it's 13 pi over 6, reference angle is pi over 6. If it's 18 pi over 6, yeah, when it simplifies, it's a whole number, so that's different. So if it's a whole number when it simplifies, then no big deal. But if it's not a whole number when it simplifies, the reference angle is pi over 6. Anything pi over 2 is pi over 2. And once again, unless it simplifies to a whole number. Anything pi over 3 is pi over 3 unless it simplifies to a whole number. Anything pi over 4 is pi over 4 is the reference angle unless, once again, it simplifies to a whole number. And negatives do not matter, but it helps with the quadrant. So even if it's a negative 5 pi over 6, the reference angle is pi over 6, right? If it's a negative 7 pi over 4, the reference angle is pi over 4. The negative just tells you the direction. It helps you see where it's going to end. Where is that quadrant going to be when it ends? All students take calculus. All sine is positive in this one. That's what the S stands for. Take tangent and cotangent. Calculus, C, cosine, and secant are positive. So just make sure after you find the reference angle and you use your hand, you put the negatives with the respective answers and you got your answer. If it's a decimal, you have to see where it fits. So for example, if I asked you to find 3, you got to remember that pi is 3.1415925. So you would do 3.14 minus 3 and you would get about 0.4 as the reference angle. If it's like 3.5, and you remember 3.5 is more than pi. Since it's more than pi, it would be 3.5 minus pi instead, or 3.5 minus 3.14. So you have to remember. And if you don't remember, just type it in. Press pi, enter. You'll get 3.14. If someone gives you 18 pi over 7 and you don't know what that is, type it in the calculator and see what it is as a decimal. It'll help you get your answer. If we gave you 5.5, well, you know that pi is 3.14, 2 pi is 6.28, right? So you do 2 pi minus that to get 0.78 as your reference angle. So find the terminal point and the reference angle in the unit circle of 5 pi over 6. Well, the reference angle, like I said, it's just pi over 6. No big deal. And you know that it ends in that quadrant right there as well. So it's pi over 6. Cosine is x, sine is y. So pi over 6 means I put down my ring finger. So cosine is, there's 3 fingers to the right, so it's root 3 over 2. Sine, there's 1 finger to the right, so it's root 1 or 1/2. And in quadrant 2, sine is positive and cosine is negative. So it would be positive 1/2 there, but negative root 3 over 2. Find the terminal point and reference angle on the unit circle determined by 7 pi over 4. Reference angle, because it doesn't simplify to be nice, neat, and even, the reference angle is pi over 4. So, got to figure out where it ends. Well, 8 pi over 4 is 2 pi, so it almost works the entire way around the circle. Here's where 7 pi over 4 would be. Reference angle is pi over 4. Remember, cosine is x and sine is y. So, that means the middle finger goes down. So, Cosine is the square root of the right, which is 2 fingers, so root 2 over 2. Sine is the square root of the left over 2, which is 2 fingers, root 2 over 2. In that quadrant, all students take calculus C, meaning cosine is positive, and it is, and sine is negative. And there would be your final answer, root 2 over 2, negative root 2 over 2. Find the terminal point and reference angle on the unit circle determined by negative 2 pi over 3. So I go in the negative direction, which means I go down. This would be negative 3 pi over 3, so it ends in this quadrant right here. Pi over 3 happens to be the reference angle, and remember, x and y, x is cosine, y is sine. So my pi over 4 finger, it's not actually pi over 4, it's pi over 3 finger. The pi over 3 finger is my pointer finger, not pi over 4 finger. So I put my pointer finger down. Cosine is 1/2 because there's only one finger to the right, and the left there's 3 fingers, so it's 1/2 and root 3 over 2. In that quadrant, all students take, meaning t is positive, cosine is positive, but cosine and sine are both negative, so they're both negative, so it's negative 1/2, negative root 3 over 2. If the terminal point and reference angle in the unit circle are determined by 5.8, well, we got to figure out where 5.8 is, basically. 2 pi is 6.28, so it's not any farther than that, so it's 2 pi minus 5.8, which is 0.48. The terminal point and the reference angle on the unit circle are 29 pi over 6. We know that the reference angle is pi over 6. We have to figure out where it ends. So that's pi, which is, keep going around. 2 pi would be 12 pi over 6. I have everything in terms of 6, so we can figure out where it ends. This over here would then be 6 more added on, which would be 18 pi over 6. This would be 24 pi over 6. If it made it the whole way back around again, this would be 30 pi over 6. So it doesn't quite make it, meaning it ends over here in this quadrant. So now that I know the reference angle is pi over 6, and I know that cosine is x and sine is y, so no problem. Now I just need to figure out, well, pi over 6 is the ring finger. So square root of the right is 3 fingers to the right, so it's root 3 over 2. Square root of the left is 1 finger to the right, so that's 1/2. And in that quadrant, it's all students, meaning S, meaning sine is positive. So the only thing positive there would be the 1/2. So it's negative root 3 over 2, 1/2. Okay, so that was a bunch of examples on how to find reference angles, how to find terminal sides, etc., etc. If you have any questions or concerns, first I would slow down, rewind, repeat, go over them again. And if you still have questions or concerns, feel free to email me at any time. Thank you.